Sometimes the strongest move you can make isn't a loud declaration or a long explanation, it's silence. It's stepping back, stepping away, and letting the absence speak for itself. No contact is not just a strategy, it's a statement. It's saying, I've done enough, given enough, and it's time to choose me. Ladies and gentlemen, now, here's the thing about no contact. It forces people to confront what they'd rather avoid. When you're no longer available, no longer there to cushion their mistakes, no longer there to fill the void, they have to face it. They have to go through it. At first, they might dismiss it. They'll act unbothered, put on a front, or even pretend they don't notice, but deep down, oh, they notice, because when someone has gotten used to your energy, your kindness, your presence, they don't just move on like nothing happened. What happens next? They start to feel it. The silence becomes heavy. They begin to see what life is like without the love, the patience, the support you brought into their world. They start to realize that what they took for granted wasn't ordinary, it was extraordinary. And now it's gone. But here's the part you need to understand that's not your burden anymore. You're not responsible for how they handle your absence. You're not responsible for the regret, the reflection, or the reckoning they might face. That's their lesson to learn, their storm to weather, their growth to experience. No contact is one of the most profound ways you can show your self-respect. It's not a dramatic gesture, nor is it a form of manipulation. It's a quiet, intentional act that prioritizes your well-being over everything else. By choosing no contact, you are making a statement, not just to the other person, but to yourself. I value my peace, my energy, and my time enough to protect them. So often we find ourselves in situations or relationships where we give more than we receive. We forgive too quickly, extend patience too often, and explain ourselves repeatedly to people who aren't listening. It's not because we're weak, but because we care, because we want to believe in the best of others. But there comes a point where you realize that your care and effort are being taken for granted. You're no longer being seen for the person you are, but for what you can provide. And in that moment, the choice to step away becomes not just an option, but a necessity. When you choose no contact, it isn't about anger or spite. It's about reclaiming the respect you've lost in the back and forth of unbalanced dynamics. It's about saying, I've done enough, and now it's time for me to stop sacrificing myself for someone who doesn't see my worth. Respecting yourself means recognizing when a relationship or interaction is draining more from you than it's giving back. It's realizing that your time, energy, and mental health are valuable resources and shouldn't be spent on people or situations that leave you feeling empty. The act of going no contact is often misunderstood. Some may perceive it as cold or unkind, but the truth is, it's one of the kindest things you can do for yourself. When you've reached a point where conversations lead nowhere, where apologies are meaningless, and where your voice feels unheard, continuing to engage only deepens the wounds. Walking away and choosing silence isn't giving up, it's standing up. It's standing up for the version of yourself that deserves peace and dignity. Choosing no contact isn't always easy. There are emotional ties, memories, and moments of doubt that make you question whether you're doing the right thing. You might feel guilty, wondering if you're being too harsh or if the other person will misunderstand your intentions. But self-respect doesn't require explanation. It doesn't need justification to others. It simply requires you to honor yourself, even when it feels uncomfortable. In going no contact, you are prioritizing your healing. You are creating a space where you can breathe, reflect, and rebuild without interference. It's in the silence that you rediscover yourself, your passions, your boundaries, and your strength. The absence of the person you've chosen to disconnect from isn't a loss, it's a gain of clarity. You begin to see the ways you've compromised, the times you've settled, and the patterns that need to change. This period of no contact becomes a sanctuary, a place where you learn to pour into yourself the love and attention you once gave so freely to someone else. It's important to understand that no contact is not about punishment. It's not a tactic to make the other person suffer or to teach them a lesson. That's not your responsibility. Your focus is not on how they perceive your absence, but on how you use it to heal and grow. Self-respect means letting go of the need to control how others react to your boundaries. It's about trusting that your decision to step back is the right one, regardless of whether it's met with understanding or resistance. There's a quiet power in walking away. It's not about making a statement to the world, but about making a commitment to yourself. You're choosing to break free from cycles of hurt, disappointment, and unmet expectations. You're declaring that your peace is non-negotiable. And while the other person might not understand your decision, their understanding is not required for you to move forward. In time, the strength you find in no contact becomes a foundation for how you approach every aspect of your life. You start to see yourself as worthy of the respect and care you so willingly give to others. You become more discerning about who has access to your time and energy. And most importantly, you learn that self-respect isn't just something you demand from others, it's something you consistently give to yourself. No contact is a gift to yourself, a declaration that you are no longer willing to tolerate less than you deserve. It's not an easy path, but it's a necessary one for anyone who values their self-worth. By stepping away, you step into a version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, and deeply committed to living a life aligned with respect and dignity. When you step away from someone's life, your absence carries a weight that can't be ignored. The initial reaction might not always be visible. Some people mask it with indifference, act as though they're unaffected, or continue their routine as if nothing has changed. But beneath the surface, the impact of your absence begins to unfold gradually and undeniably. It's not something you announce or force, it's something that simply exists, and over time it demands attention. Your presence, no matter how much someone may have taken it for granted, holds a unique energy. It's not just about what you did for them or how you were there for them, it's about the intangible value you brought into their world. Whether it was your kindness, your support, your understanding, or even just your consistency, those qualities left a mark. And when they're gone, there's a void, a silence that speaks louder than words ever could. At first, they might not realize it. People often don't recognize the full extent of what they've lost until they're forced to live without it. The routines they shared with you, the conversations they relied on, the emotional support they leaned on, all of that becomes conspicuously absent. It's in the small, quiet moments of their day when your absence becomes the loudest. A question they want to ask but can't. A thought they want to share but have no one to tell. It's in those moments of reflection when they truly begin to understand what you meant to them. This process isn't about making someone feel regret or sorrow. It's about the natural realization that comes with time and distance. When you're constantly available, people can become accustomed to your presence, treating it as something they can always count on. But when that presence is no longer there, they're forced to confront the reality of what they've lost. They begin to see that the energy you brought wasn't something they were entitled to, it was a gift. Presence is a powerful mirror. It reflects not just the value of what was lost, but also the choices that led to it. For the person experiencing your absence, it can be a time of deep reflection. They might think back on the moments when they failed to appreciate you, the times they didn't listen, or the ways they took you for granted. This isn't about assigning blame, it's about the natural consequences of behavior and the clarity that only distance can provide. But the impact of absence doesn't stop with the other person. It also creates a space for you to heal, grow, and regain your strength. When you step back from a situation or relationship, you're not just leaving behind the other person, you're reclaiming your own peace. You're giving yourself permission to focus on your own needs, to evaluate what truly serves you, and to rebuild in a way that aligns with your values and self-worth. Absence teaches lessons that words cannot. For the person left behind, it's a lesson in gratitude and recognizing the importance of those who choose to be in their life. For you, it's a lesson in boundaries and understanding that stepping away isn't an act of selfishness, but an act of self-preservation. It's a reminder that your time, energy, and presence are valuable, and they should be shared with people who truly appreciate and reciprocate them. As time passes, the absence often becomes a turning point. For the person on the receiving end, it may inspire growth or change. They might come to understand what they've lost and strive to be better, not just for you, but for themselves. Or they might choose to stay the same, unwilling to confront the lessons your absence brings. Either way, their journey is theirs to navigate, and it's not your responsibility to guide it. For you, the space created by absence allows you to discover new facets of yourself. You realize the strength it took to step away, the courage it required to enforce your boundaries, and the freedom that comes with choosing yourself. You learn to fill the spaces in your own life with joy, purpose, and connections that uplift rather than drain you. In the end, absence is a teacher for both sides. It reveals truths, inspires reflection, and creates opportunities for growth. It's not about punishing anyone or proving a point. It's about allowing life to unfold naturally and letting the lessons emerge in their own time. Your absence speaks volumes not because it's loud, but because it's honest. It's a quiet reminder of your worth and the value of your presence, something no one can take away or ignore. Silence has a unique power that words often cannot replicate. It carries a depth and intensity that can speak directly to the heart of a situation without ever making a sound. When you choose silence, especially in the context of relationships or conflicts, it is not an act of avoidance, but one of profound intention. Silence isn't emptiness, it's fullness, a space where meaning resonates more loudly than any spoken word. It's in a world that thrives on noise, constant communication, and immediate reaction. Silence can feel uncomfortable, even disarming. People are accustomed to filling every void with explanations, justifications, or attempts to control a narrative. But silence shifts the dynamic. It removes the opportunity for endless debates, excuses, or manipulations. It forces the other person to sit with themselves, to confront their thoughts, and to reckon with their actions without interference. When you stop speaking, stop responding, or step back, your absence in the conversation becomes a mirror. That silence reflects back to the other person what they might not have wanted to see. It highlights the space you once filled and compels them to face the reality of their actions, their choices, and their role in what has unfolded. They are left with only their thoughts. And in that stillness, truths begin to surface. Silence is powerful because it cannot be argued with. Words can be twisted, misinterpreted, or dismissed, but silence stands firm. It leaves no room for miscommunication because there is nothing to miscommunicate. It doesn't seek validation or understanding from others, it simply exists, and in its simplicity it speaks volumes. It says, I will not engage in a battle that has no resolution. I will not explain myself to someone who isn't ready to listen. I will not waste my energy on situations that do not honor my peace. For the person on the receiving end of silence, the absence of your voice is often louder than any argument you could make. They may initially dismiss it, brushing it off as an act of defiance or indifference. But as time passes, that silence begins to weigh on them. It's in the quiet moments when they expect to hear from you and don't, or when they replay old conversations and realize you're no longer participating, that the full impact of your silence starts to sink in. Silence is not about passive aggression or manipulation. It's about creating a boundary, a clear, unwavering line that says, I will not allow you to disrupt my peace any longer. It's about stepping away from the noise, the drama, and the unproductive cycles that drain your energy. By choosing silence, you are reclaiming your power. You are deciding that your voice will only be used where it is valued and where it can bring about meaningful change. In relationships, silence can often highlight what words have failed to convey. It can reveal the imbalances, the lack of mutual respect, or the emotional labor you've carried for too long. When you step back and let silence take its place, you create room for reflection both for yourself and the other person. You gain clarity about what you truly want and deserve, while they are left to grapple with the consequences of their behavior. Silence also allows for healing. It gives you the space to process your emotions without the distractions of conflict or constant engagement. In the quiet, you can hear your own thoughts more clearly. You can reconnect with your inner voice, the one that often gets drowned out in the chaos of life. This is where growth happens, where you begin to understand yourself better and recognize your own strength. For the other person, your silence may feel unsettling, even painful. They may try to break it to draw you back into conversation or to provoke a reaction. The silence, when chosen with intention, is unshakable. It's not about withholding or punishing, it's about preserving. It's about protecting your emotional energy and refusing to be pulled back into situations that do not serve you. For time, silence can lead to transformation. It can inspire introspection and change in others, though that is not its primary goal. The real power of silence lies in what it does for you. It gives you the time, space, and freedom to focus on your own well-being. It allows you to step back, regain perspective, and approach life with a clearer mind and a stronger sense of self. Silence doesn't demand attention, but it inevitably commands it. It's a quiet assertion of your worth and your boundaries. It says everything without saying anything at all. And in that stillness, it speaks the loudest truth of all. I respect myself enough to walk away from anything that no longer honors me. When you choose to step back from a situation or a relationship, it's essential to understand that their journey is not your responsibility. It can be challenging to accept, especially if you spend a lot of time and emotional energy trying to guide, support, or even fix someone. But the truth is, no matter how much you care, how much you invest, or how much you hope, the path they walk is ultimately theirs to navigate. And for many people, there's an instinct to step in and help, to shoulder the burdens of others and make their road a little easier. It often comes from a place of compassion, love, or even guilt. You might feel that if you don't stay involved, they'll falter, or that without your presence, they won't find their way. But this belief often leads to exhaustion and frustration as you take on responsibilities that were never meant to be yours. When you step away, you allow them to take ownership of their journey. This doesn't mean you don't care or that you're abandoning them. It means you're respecting their ability to face their challenges and make their choices. Everyone has their own path to walk, lessons to learn, and growth to experience. By trying to control or influence their journey, you might unintentionally hinder their progress. Growth often comes from struggle. And without the space to face their difficulties, they may never find the strength to grow. It's important to recognize that your decision to step back is not an act of selfishness. In fact, it's one of the most compassionate things you can do for them and for yourself. By releasing the responsibility for their journey, you give them the freedom to make their own choices, even if those choices lead to mistakes. Mistakes are part of learning. And growth often comes from the discomfort of confronting the consequences of one's actions. At the same time, stepping back allows you to focus on your own journey. When you're consumed with the challenges of someone else's path, it's easy to lose sight of your own needs, goals, and well-being. You may find yourself drained, constantly giving without receiving, and neglecting the areas of your life that need attention. By letting go of their responsibility, you reclaim your energy and redirect it toward your growth and healing. The reality is, you cannot force someone to change, grow, or take responsibility for their life. No amount of effort on your part can make up for their unwillingness to face themselves or their circumstances. Change has to come from within, and it requires a level of self-awareness and accountability that you cannot impose on someone else. Your role is not to carry them, but to step aside and let them carry themselves. It's natural to feel concern or even guilt when you step away, especially if you've been deeply involved in their life. You might worry about how they'll manage without you or fear that your absence will make things worse. But this worry often stems from an overestimation of your control. The truth is, their journey has always been theirs, even when you were involved. Your presence may have offered support, but it was never the sole determinant of their choices or outcomes. This letting go doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop controlling. It means you trust that they have the capacity to navigate their challenges, even if it takes time. It also means you trust yourself to prioritize your peace and well-being, knowing that you've done what you could within healthy boundaries. Their journey is theirs to figure out, and that includes the victories and the setbacks. Whether they rise or fall, grow or remain the same, it's not a reflection of your effort or worth. People are responsible for their actions, their decisions, and the consequences that come with them. By stepping back, you're allowing them to take full ownership of their life, which is the only way real growth can happen. You are not abandoning them, you're honoring their autonomy. You're recognizing that every individual must walk their own path, face their own challenges, and learn their own lessons. Your role is not to fix or save, but to respect their process, even when it's difficult to watch. It's about knowing when to let go, not out of frustration or bitterness, but out of love and respect for them and for yourself. In releasing responsibility for their journey, you liberate yourself from unnecessary burdens and allow them the dignity of growth. This is not an easy choice, but it's a necessary one for both parties. Our journey, with all its twists and turns, is their responsibility to face, just as yours is yours to embrace.